Okay. Why do you want to share your story?
Because I think it's important. I think it's important that people know the truth.
Mm,
For years, I was scared to death. Truly, I was like, so I'm Nico, a little history on me. I'm kind of considered one of the pillars of our community,
yeah.
right? I've been in my town for 44 and a half years. I've spent 20 years in local politics. I was uh, the sign board chairman. I was the board of adjustment chairman. I was planning and zoning. I was, I was in it. I was in it because I was making a difference in our local community. I was pre-programmed with drugs are bad,
Hmm.
and I'm not saying all drugs are good. Don't misread that, please,
Yeah.
because I don't think there's any benefit to heroin or cocaine or methamphetamines or there's some things that just will never be okay with me, and I've never tried them, nor do I have any desire to do that. Um, but I also know, Nico, that I was broken. I
Yeah.
I was really broken. I grew up in the deepest, darkest ghettos of Detroit. My brother and I were the only white boys in our school. We used to get beat every day until we learned how to fight back.
Mm,
Um, my dad was a workaholic. My mother was an alcoholic. She took out she would start drinking and take her rage out on me because I was the oldest child and it was all my fault,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
All this baggage. And I didn't realize how broken I was. I just knew that it was the craziest thing, dude. Like the more successful I became, the angrier I became,
Mm,
which makes no sense at all for any logical, rational human being.
yeah.
But the more money I generated, the more success that I had, the angrier and the more unsettled I was. I mean, I got to the point where I was truly a high functioning alcoholic. So I was in a business meeting in Arizona in February of 2018. And this man stood up. There were about 50 of us in the room. And he stood up and he started talking about MDMA therapy for PTSD.
Was this on topic? What sort of business meeting does someone?
No, it had nothing to do with MDMA, had nothing to do with, I mean, we were
Yeah.
there networking. I mean, we were, everybody in the room paid $25,000 to be there.
Okay.
This was the furthest freaking thing you could ever imagine hearing. I'm like, who is this jerk getting up and talking about this crap when we're supposed to be here doing business?
Yeah. And
And the
up
more
until this
he,
point, you hadn't done any drugs.
oh, never, I never even smoked marijuana. I mean, my drug was alcohol.
Uh,
So this guy starts talking about MDMA therapy for PTSD. He talked about all of his experiences and how it's changed his life and how he's a better person, et cetera, et cetera. And I was fascinated. I was completely riveted. I was enthralled. I just had, so after the meeting, I got his phone number and I said, dude, can I talk to you about this? He said, absolutely. And I'll tell you that between two phone calls, he gave me 3 hours of his life. And I am eternally grateful. Well, I told him, I said, I don't know the first thing about it. I don't know what to expect. I've
yeah.
never done anything of any type of anything. And
Did you know, did you have a diagnosis? Were you on a healing journey already, or like did
no,
you suspect that you were broken, as you said?
yeah, what I knew is it wasn't normal
Mm,
for me to be successful and be so angry.
yeah.
It wasn't normal for me to go out to a restaurant and if there was a loud crash like someone dropped plates, I had to leave the room.
Wow.
It wasn't normal. Like I had to leave the restaurant. Like,
Yeah.
get your stuff to go. We're leaving now. I'll be in the car.
Wow.
Like I couldn't be there. That just wasn't normal. If there was a woman getting drunk and getting loud, I had to leave.
Wow. Yeah.
It just isn't normal. And for whatever reason, I was given the wisdom to realize that it was not normal.
Mm.
And I'm a researcher by personality. And so that was in February of 2018. And I spent literally 18 months learning everything that I could about MDMA. I learned everything I could about PTSD. I learned everything I could about MAPS, maps.org, the Multiple Disciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies. I learned all I could about Rick Doblin. I learned about how many freaking universities have been working with MDMA for decades, like all over the globe, all over the United States, and they're not telling anybody anything about this. And I learned how MAPS has taken it through phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 studies, and I learned all of this stuff. And I in February of, or I'm sorry, December of 17, I spent 5 days in the ICU and I almost died. So I was hyper concerned
Mm.
about taking anything of any sort,
Yeah.
right? So I found an underground MD who sat with me. It was very expensive. Um, but I found an underground MD that was kind enough to sit with me. And I did that when we decided to pull the trigger and do this leap of faith. But I wanted to make sure, because at that time I was in stage 2 of heart failure,
Wow.
and a virus had attacked my heart and my lungs, and I had lost 50% of the use of my lungs, so I couldn't breathe. I had a weak heart, and I'm getting ready to jump off and do MDMA. What in the world was wrong with me? I had this amazing leap of faith. With everything that I read, there was nothing. There's a guy by the name of Dr. Dan Engel, who wrote a book called A Dose of Hope. It's a great book you can get on Amazon for like $12. I read that book. Um, Dr. Dan, I believe when you go back through, he has treated like 4,000 people
Mm.
for PTSD and depression with MDMA, and there was only one contraindication out of 4,000 people. And so it's like, wow, those are pretty good odds.
Yeah.
I'll take that. I'll take that as a plus. And so we did this did this journey, and I did my journaling beforehand. I did my exercise, which is my normal routine. I went for a nice walk. That was about all I could do at the time. And then I showered and put on comfortable clothes and laid down, and we did a guided meditation while the medicine was taking effect. And we played really nice music, and made sure my intention was clear. And the medicine took over. And I will tell you, from my experience, uh, MDMA is magic.
Mm.
I think at some point it will probably, once they unschedule it or figure out what they need to do to make it available to people, it will probably go down as one of the greatest inventions next to penicillin, probably,
Yeah.
because I think it's that transformative. I believe that um, it's life changing on every single level. The medicine, you know, goes and it shows you what you need to see. It's absolutely fascinating. I mean, and let me tell you that I spent years with talk therapy. I've spent how many? tens of thousands of dollars with psychiatrists, psychologists trying to help me clear my stuff, right? And one session with MDMA changed my life. Um, MDMA will show you your past trauma, and it fills your body with the dopamine and the serotonin, and so you feel safe, you feel loved, no matter what happens, you're safe. You just feel I mean, they use MDMA in ecstasy. They call it ecstasy for a reason, and it's really how you feel. And you're laying back with an eye mask on, right? So you have this eye mask on, and the medicine is repairing the neural pathways in your brain. So if you have suppressed memories, it helps you to reconnect with those, and it shows you in your mind's eye, you get to re-experience your trauma.
That sounds kind of scary.
It does sound scary, and I'll tell you that on the surface, the concept scared the living spit out of me. Other
Yeah.
than I thought man, I spent hours with these people. I thought I had dealt with all of my stuff,
Yeah.
right? I thought I had dealt with all of my stuff, and yet I'm still angry. So there was a huge disconnect, if you will. It just wasn't. One and one did not make two. One
Mhm.
and one came up with like 47. And so I'm sitting here in the medicine. And by the way, talk about scary. When you're revisiting your trauma, if 0 is no trauma and 10 is you're going to die trauma, if you get to 7, 8, or 9, literally what you do is you sit up, lift up your eye mask, look around, see that you're living in current day. It's like it pauses the movie,
Mm.
okay? And then you look around, you reevaluate, you settle yourself, and you go, okay, I'm cool. I'm just remembering. And you put the eye mask back down, you lay back down, and you're right back in it like you unpaused the movie.
Wow.
And you can take a second bite at the apple, if you will, from a cleared mental state. You're like, okay, I know this is just a memory,
Mm.
right? And so in my case, I was about 4.5 or 5 years old, and I'm right back in that moment, and I'm experiencing this through the eyes of my 5-year-old little boy, and I'm experiencing it like I was looking from the corner up in the corner of the room, looking down. And I also experienced it looking through the eyes of my uncle as he sexually abused me,
God.
all at the same time. And so, when you're 5 years old and something horrific like this happens to you, you feel like you're going to die.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden, Nico, it made sense to me that 56 years of my life, I have been in fight or flight mode.
Wow.
That trauma was still in my body
Yeah.
for 56 years of my life. And so now I'm looking at it as a 61-year-old man. And again, I'd never done any of this. This was absolutely amazing to me that this could happen. And instead of being traumatized, instead of being hurt, instead of fight or flight, I looked at it and I said, what in the hell's wrong with you? Talking to my uncle. Why would you do this to this beautiful, innocent little boy?
Yeah.
Like, what the hell kind of human being are you? Right? I got to reframe it. I got to look at my trauma from an adult viewpoint as opposed to a 5-year-old. I got out of that experience, and I saw a number of other things that were not traumatic. They were just beautiful. And I remember calling my wife into the room and telling her, I said, you know, first I want you to know that I love you. I want you to know that I'm appreciative of you. I'm grateful that you've hung with me all through all this stuff. And I really have a beautiful life. And I love my life and I love you. And I'm grateful you're a part of it. I mean, I remember that like I just told it to her today.
Yeah.
And you know, my wife is going to be canonized when she dies. I think the Catholic Church is going to make a saint out of her because she put up with a bunch of stuff that most normal people would have bailed on me because I was a tyrant. I was a horrible human for a husband, uh, probably a horrible father, you know. But I can honestly say I did the best that I could with what I had at the time,
Yeah.
and the knowledge that I've gleaned since then is absolutely amazing. Um, I've had a number of MDMA sessions since then. I've learned that it's like peeling back the layers of an onion. You keep finding more and more stuff um, that that you need to heal. And by the way, trauma isn't what happens to you at all. Trauma is the story you make up about what happens to you.
Mm.
You can have three people experience the same thing, and they will each have three different stories about what happened,
Yeah.
right? So trauma is the story. You have an event, and you create a narrative about that event, and that narrative runs your life
Mm.
until you learn how to change the narrative. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and what you described about going back and replaying your trauma and seeing it from different perspectives, that was you rewriting the story and
Yes.
taking, as a 5-year-old, you probably couldn't help but think it was somehow your fault or I don't something wrong with you. But the way
Yeah.
that
What
you
did I
told
do?
it, it was
What did
something
I
wrong
do
with your
to
uncle.
what did
Yeah,
I do to deserve this?
yeah,
Right? How did this happen? Well, why did ouch, right?
yeah,
And as a 61-year-old man, you look at it totally different. You think you effing perfect,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know? I mean, I was angry for a different level of reasons, a different number of reasons, right?
yeah.
And I crashed pretty hard that night because it the work is exhausting at times. And Nico, I got up the next morning, I started journaling, and I found myself getting angry.
Mhm.
And I was seething. And I remember thinking to myself, what the F is going on? This medicine's supposed to make me happy, not supposed to make me angrier. And I remember literally writing how I was going to go and assassinate my uncle.
Wow.
I mean, dude, I was getting specific. I was going to rent a car, get a burner phone, all this stuff. And I said, dude, I know where I'm writing. I know where you live. I just popped into your house, 3 rounds to the back of the head, right? Easy peasy. And the world will be done with you.
Yeah.
And somehow, some reason, I literally slammed my pencil down on the table and I said, no, I like yelled, no, that's not who I am.
Mhm.
And when I did that, from about my navel up to about a foot over my head and about a foot and a half outside of my body, just felt cold, empty, and vacuous like space. And I had the thought, what are you going to fill that with now?
Mm.
And I said, love. And all of a sudden, as soon as I thought the word love, I just felt warm and I felt complete.
Mm.
And I grabbed my pen and I started writing how I forgave my uncle.
Wow.
I'm telling you, it was life changes is an understatement.
Yeah.
It They say that only 20% of the healing happens in the medicine. 80% happens outside of the medicine.
Mm.
And that's the key to it. The medicine opens the door. You have to be able to integrate it. You have to know what to do with it, right? Like had I like I've been on a healing course since 1984. Okay. I was one of the original SDs. I did the S training back in 84. And then I did Landmark Forum. And I'm like, I've been on this program trying to figure out what the heck is wrong with me, literally for 40 years.
Yeah.
And so because of the training that I've had and the education that I have, I knew enough to ask myself the right questions. And that's why it's so important. I think that talk therapy with MDMA, talk therapy with psilocybin is critical. You most normal people, you can't do this on your own. You
Yeah.
need someone that will help you to integrate the new way of thinking into your life
Yeah.
so that you can change your way of being and your way of thinking into what you want it to be, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. You're rewriting the
Yeah.
stories of the trauma. And yeah, the way you rewrite them determines if they still traumatize you. And that happens outside of the medicine, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. 80% of the healing is after the medicine.
Yeah.
So when we well, my wife and I do some of this work, um, and we help each other through this.
Mm.
And occasionally we help friends when they go, "Hey, what the hell is what's happened to you? You're a different human being." Right? We've lost a lot of friends talking about this stuff because it's not alcohol and no, we can't even talk about that stuff. That's bad. Like, okay, yeah, you're just regurgitating what the Matrix wants you to say.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, when you said you replaced that void with love, that when I first met you, when I walked into the room and shook your hand, that's what I felt from you. I
Yeah,
felt that that's what you carry with you, and that's what you exude, and that's why I was attracted to you and to your wife. Um, and so, as you described yourself before, angry and broken, like that wasn't resonating. I was like, that's not the Jerry I've met. And so when you said that singular, you replaced it with love, I was like, that's the guy that I met. That's the guy
thank
we're
you.
talking to today.
Yeah,
And
that
that's
that warms my heart, my friend, because that's who I am. I learned that um, I come from a place of love. Uh, I run an automotive repair shop, and I tell my employees, every one of them, that I love them. Right?
mm,
Imagine that relationship that I have with these people.
yeah,
Right? And I mean, you're telling another man you love him. Yeah, they get it. They understand. They've seen the change in me.
yeah.
I've got people that have worked for me for 31 years, and they're like, dude, you're so different. Like, what
How
happened?
how did this so it's obvious to me how it changed you because I'm seeing the changed version, but like how did it change your business? So you had been running this business throughout. Um, how did it change your approach to business?
I was I don't know if it's okay to say this, but I was a son of a bitch. I was a son of a bitch to work for and work with, um, even as customers. Like it took a special person to want to come back to our
Wow.
business. Um, yeah, I mean, I was tough. I was very angry. Like I started the day off angry and pissed off because, you know, someone didn't do something right, I mean, and I would look for things people were doing wrong.
Yeah.
It was a tough environment to be in for everybody. And I'll tell you what I've learned today. People go, "Oh, are you ever angry anymore?" Oh, hell yeah, absolutely. But anger is a tool.
Mm.
It's another arrow in my quiver, right? You have to. I mean, it's human nature to get angry at times, but you don't. That's not your. It's not your normal way of being. It's not my normal way of being anymore. It used to be if my pants were on, I had an attitude, right? Uh,
How do you use that tool? So when you feel angry, like, yeah, what do you do with that?
like I'm in the process of construction. We're wrapping up a 10,000 square foot building we're building out here, and my contractor has said repeatedly to other people, "I've never seen him angry. You don't want to." Like, okay, I'm really good with that. I don't have to be. They just they can feel that that's you don't want to push that button,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I'm quite content with that. And I tell them, dude, I don't know what you mean. I mean, have you ever heard me yell at anybody? No, sir, we don't want to. I mean, okay, I'm cool with that. It's
Yeah.
really fun. Friday night, the contractors all want to sit around here. I have a couple picnic tables on our patio here at the ranch, and they all want to sit around and listen to me tell stories. Like, dude, it's 8 o'clock. Don't you need to go home to your family? You have an hour and a half drive. Go home. Now we want to hang out with you for a little bit more. It's like, okay, well, I'm tired. I want to go. I want to be with my wife now. Please go home. Right?
Uh,
So
man.
it's really, Nico, it's such a different life I live
Yeah.
anymore. I can tell you from my experience, each medicine shows you different things and in different ways. I certainly recommend that if you're going to work with any of these, you find a guide, someone who's experienced, someone who can help you through um, any issues that may or may not come up, or at least help you before and after to prepare and then figure out what to do with this new information or new way of thinking. Um, 80% of us have unresolved trauma in our body. 80%. 80% of the people walking up and down the street right now today in America, driving down the road, 80% of us have unresolved trauma in our body.
Wow.
That means 80% of us could benefit from a one single MDMA experience.
Yeah.
And I think that it's I don't even know the words about how horrible it is for the human species that this medicine is being withheld from us. It's more than horrific.
Yeah.
We have more than 22 vets take their life every day, every single day in this country. More than 22 vets take their lives, and they could be cured with as little as one MDMA session. And why is this being withheld? It makes no sense. Keep up the good work you're doing, man. If there's anything I can do to help or promote, please let me know. I'd be honored to help.
Thank you, Jerry.
You bet.
I can see why your contractors want to stick around. You're fun to talk to. I so appreciate you sharing your story, and um, it's going to do a lot of good. Thank you.